ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। अष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 5 चैप्टर 13 वर्स 9। क्वचिन्निगीर्णो जगराहिना जनो नावैति किञ्चिद् विपिने पविद्धः। दष्टस्म शेते क्व च दण्डशूकैर्अन्धोऽन्धकूपे पतितस्तमिस्रे। The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crushed. At such a time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life, with no hope of being rescued. When one becomes unconscious due to being bitten by a snake, one cannot understand what is taking place outside the body. This unconscious condition is a condition of deep sleep. Similarly, the conditioned soul is actually sleeping on the lap of the illusory energy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Kota Nidra Yao Maya Pishachi Rakhole. O living entity, how long will you sleep in this condition on the lamp of the illusory energy? People do not understand that they are actually sleeping in this material world, being devoid of knowledge of spiritual life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Eneche Aushadhi Maya Nashibara Lagi Harinama Mahamantra Lao Tumi Magi. Now I have brought medicine to awaken every living being from perpetual sleep. Please receive the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and awaken. The Katha Upanishad also says, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varani Bodhata. O living entity, you are sleeping in this material world. Please get up and take advantage of your human form of life. The sleeping condition means loss of all knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Yanisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyami. What is night for all living beings is the time of awakening for the self control. Even in the higher planets, everyone is under the spell of the illusory energy. No one is really interested in the real values of life. The sleeping condition, called Kala Sarpa, keeps the conditioned soul in a state of ignorance, and therefore pure consciousness is lost. In the forest, there are many blind wells, and if one falls down in one, there is no chance of being rescued. In a state of sleep, one remains perpetually bitten by some animals, especially snakes. So, this is mainly highlighting the mm, state of ignorance, devoid of consciousness. So, just bodily consciousness, no real consciousness. Then we fall down into the dark well of material life, um, being blind to our consciousness, real consciousness. We fall down into the dark well of material life with no hope of being rescued. The only hope is to actually hear, associate with sadhu and come out of the dark well. But if somebody is not open to spiritual consciousness, like Prabhupada used to say, they'll say, "Mm, dog, no, beware, there is dog, so don't come inside." So sadhus don't go into such houses. So such people who are blind, they fall down into the dark well of material life. And it is the duty of devotees to wake them up. So it is the duty of devotees to wake people up. So we have to somehow wake people up. So easiest is to give a book. Small Prabhupada's book would be good enough to awaken sleeping soul. Small book. Even something like just bhakti. There's one small book on bhakti. Uh, so many books are there which we can give, and that will awaken sleeping soul. Mm. So something that we should all try to do. Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificant sex enjoyment, one searches after debauchee women. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the woman's kinsmen. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee. And this is not just necessarily woman, it's just about anything and everything in the material life that we go behind. In a great forest, honeycombs are very important. People often go there to collect honey from the combs, and sometimes the bees attack and punish them. In human society, those who are not Krishna conscious remain in the forest of material life simply for the honey of sex life. Obviously, this says that those who are in Krishna consciousness should not get attracted by this illusion. Such debauchees are not at all satisfied with one wife. They want many women. Day after day, with great difficulty, they try to secure such women, and sometimes, while trying to taste this kind of honey, one is attacked by a woman's kinsmen and chastised very heavily. By bribing others, one may secure another woman for enjoyment, yet another debauchee may kidnap her or offer her something better. This woman hunting is going on in the forest of the material world, sometimes legally and sometimes illegally. Consequently, in this Krishna conscious movement, the devotees are forbidden to have illicit sex, thus, they avoid so many difficulties. One should remain satisfied with one woman, being duly married. One can satisfy one's lusty desires with his wife without creating disturbances in society and being pushed for doing so. Of course, this also has some regulation, right? It's only for the producing children. One can satisfy one's lusty desires, not um, without control, or not for sense enjoyment. And then the lusty desires are also controlled, and uh, yeah, we are protected, saved from falling victim to illicit relations. Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity amongst themselves. Yeah, so these are all things that we all experience. So we should just understand this whole conversation is just uh, trying to awaken us to the reality of material world. This is an example of the struggle for existence, the attempt to counteract the onslaught of material nature. This creates enmity in society, and consequently, society is filled with envious people. One person is envious of another, and this is the way of the material world. The Krishna conscious movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Paramanirmatsaranam satam. Vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon श्रीमद्भागवते महामनिकृते किं वा परेरीश्वर सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यते कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तत्क्षणात् Paramanirmatsanaanam satam. So it is the Mangalacharan of Bhagavatam. So it says that Bhagavatam is actually for the non-envious. So devotees should not be envious of others. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious. But the Krishna conscious movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. So this is required. Of course, everybody might not become Krishna conscious. They might come to the temple. They might just as a matter of piety, but they might not take up Krishna consciousness seriously. But it's okay. But at least we should create a good impact on them by creating an exemplary society, a high quality, high standard interaction. Society wherein everything is high class, and wherein there is no envy. Mm, Unfortunately, we see that this is very difficult. Mm, we see even amongst small preaching center in small preaching centers, etc. There are devotees who are envious. They're envious of other devotees. They're envious of other devotees who are able to take up more service, who are being given more service, and they ultimately envy of Krishna. That they don't want to serve Krishna selflessly. Mm. So though Prabhupada wants this to be an exemplary society, unfortunately we seem to face a lot of challenges. And again, the cause is lack of good sadhana. basically chanting and reading Prabhupada's books. Very surprising. Actually, I was telling a group of devotees to read one small book, Beyond Birth and Death. Just as, some new devotees, we wanted to encourage them. One of the devotees who had read this book many years back, he just came and saying that I don't want to read this book again. Then, I was just asking, do you know what is there in the book? He doesn't remember, but he doesn't want to read again. Mm. So this is our problem. Our problem is we don't want to surrender to Srila Prabhupada's books. We don't want to consider Srila Prabhupada's books as the guiding force. So if we are not ready to take instructions, then we can't become exemplary. Prabhupada has given those instructions in his books, and unless we read them, we cannot develop exemplary behavior. And then there is envy, natural outcome. It's a very natural kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. This matsarya is there in every person, even in devotees. Just that if we strictly follow Krishna consciousness, then we will get rid of all these anarthas. Otherwise, these qualities are there in non-devotees as are there in devotees also. So this is very, very important. We have to, and for this we have to engage nicely in loving devotional service to Krishna, then everything will be all right. But loving devotion is free of envy. On the forest path of material existence, sometimes a person is without wealth and due to this does not have proper home, bed or sitting place, nor proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others, but when his desires are not fulfilled by begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus he is insulted in society. Of course, not for everybody, but very unfortunate souls also go through this. Mm, Yeah, begging is unsuccessful. He borrows. If he cannot pay, he steals. If he cannot pay, also he steals. Not just you have to steal money. Somebody has to pay some money back to somebody else, and if it is not done, that is also stealing. And when he's caught, he is insulted. No one can live here very honestly. Therefore, by trickery, cheating, begging, borrowing, or stealing, one tries to satisfy his senses. Charvak Muni.
Wait, wait.
Kindly mute yourself if you're busy with other things in the background. There's no one in this material world is living peacefully. And the reason for all that is our karma, kind of actions we do. Because devotees, we have to become responsible for our actions. Human beings only have to be responsible, but devotees need to be more responsible for their actions. Due to monetary transactions, relationships become very strained and end in enmity. So, this is one thing I tell devotees, don't engage in monetary dealings with other devotees unofficially. Of course, if it is giving donation to the temple, etc., that's okay. That is required monetary transaction, but not like personal. Some people want loan, then somebody else gives loan, then it's not being repaid, then we do Vaishnava Aparad. There's so many things. Unnecessarily, we spoil our bhakti. Mm. So either you want to give money to some devotee, give it without expecting any return. If it comes, it's a bonus. Otherwise, don't give. Of course, Krishna also says somewhere saying that helping out his devotees, Krishna is also pleased by that. So it's not like we should become hard-hearted towards the situations of devotees. We should understand it's all of us have come with different karma baggage. So some people might have difficulties, but mostly, at least I follow this principle that if I give Lakshmi to any devotee, I just give it as a service and I just say, okay, if you can return, you return. I mean, sometimes I don't tell that openly, but in my mind, it's like, okay, given. If that devotee wants to return, let him be able to return, let them return, otherwise, it's fine. But otherwise, we see relations become strained, and like I was discussing yesterday, trying to get the benefit out of, Krishna, giving money, taking interest, all this is low class behavior. It is not for devotees. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress. This is very important for everybody. This is applicable to 100% of Kali Yuga. Husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship, they work very hard. Sometimes, due to scarcity of money or due to disease conditions, they are embarrassed and almost die. And this is what everybody is doing, just to maintain their relationship. Material, there are many transactions between people and societies as well as between nations, but gradually these end in enmity. Similarly, in marriage relationship, monetary transactions sometimes overpowered by the dangerous conditions of material life. My dear king, on the forest path of material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death, he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way, he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this, even up to the moment of death. Yeah, we already discussed this. This is the family life is an institution of sex, and then father, mother, then children, then their spiritual, their material progress, then getting them married, this, that, and all that. These things are going on without anyone's attaining liberation from the embarrassment of material life. No one accepts the spiritual process of knowledge and renunciation, which end in bhakti yoga. Unfortunately, people in this age avoid the association of liberated people. Avoid. We see even new people who come to our centers. Sometimes they just avoid coming. Oh no, if I come, I'll hear, then it'll have influence on me. I don't want to get influenced. I want to just live the way I'm living. There were and are many political and social heroes who have conquered enemies of equal power. Yet, due to their ignorance in believing that the land is theirs, they fight one another and lay down their lives in battle. They are not able to take up the spiritual path accepted by those in the renounced order. Although they are big heroes and political leaders, they cannot take to the path of spiritual realizations. They spoil their lives in the illusion, with the illusion of this is my land and my family. And they cannot progress spiritually and attain liberation. Aham and mama. These are all known things. Sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of birds in those creepers. Being afraid of roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Um, he wants to be happy by being embraced by the creeper like arms of his wife. So the same topics are discussed again and again, just to reiterate. Mm. Within the creepers, there are many chirping birds. This indicates that he wants to satisfy himself by hearing the sweet voice of his wife. In old age, he sometimes becomes afraid of imminent death, which is compared to a roaring lion. Then he takes shelter of some bogus swamis, yogis, incarnations, pretenders, and cheaters. Being misled by illusory energy in this way spoils his life. Harim bina mritim na taranti. No one can be saved from the imminent danger of death without taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. The word Hari indicates the lion as well as the Supreme Lord. To be saved from the hands of Hari, the lion of death, one must take shelter of the Supreme Hari, the Supreme Lord. Hmm. In the forest of material world, the living entity first of all wants to be very happy by taking shelter of the creeper-like arms of his wife and hearing her sweet voice. Later, he sometimes takes shelter of so-called gurus and sadhus who are like cranes, herons, and vultures. Thus, he is cheated both ways, materially, spiritually, by not taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Anyway, I'm not explaining too many things. These are all known. We just have to become conscious about these things and not get stuck. That's the whole idea. Being cheated by them, living entity in the forest of the material world tries to give up the association of these so-called yogis, swamis, incarnations, and come to the association of real devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of spiritual master or advanced devotees because spiritual master or advanced devotees don't let normal people just remain and live the way they want. They will give instructions which will help them, which are supposed to help them. But the people are unfortunate, so they cannot follow these instructions. Therefore, they give up company and again return to the associate monkeys who are simply interested in sense gratification and women. It derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils his life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death. So sometimes foolish person becomes disgusted with bad association, comes to the association of devotees and brahmanas and takes initiation. As advised by the spiritual master, he tries to follow the regulative principles. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions. He therefore gives up the company of devotees, goes to associate with simian people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. We've seen this so many people come to ISKCON and then go away. Those who are so-called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Outwardly, monkeys sometimes resemble sadhus because they live naked in the forest and pick fruits. But their only desire is to keep many female monkeys and enjoy sex life. Sometimes so-called spiritualists seeking a spiritual life come to associate with Krishna conscious devotees, but they cannot execute the regulative principles. Consequently, they leave the association. This way, they pass their lives up to the point of death. When the living entity becomes exactly like a monkey jumping from one branch to another, he remains in the tree of household life without any profit but sex. Thus, he is kicked by his wife just like the he ass. Unable to gain release, he remains helplessly in that position. Sometimes he falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant in the back of that cave, and he remains stranded, grasping at the twigs and branches of a creeper. So, householder's life is full of misery, and the only attraction is sex with the wife who kicks him during sexual intercourse, just as the she ass does her mate. So, yeah, so this is all known stuff. O killer of enemies, Maharaja Rahugana, if the conditioned soul somehow or other gets out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life. For that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest. Nate vidusvartagatim hi Vishnu. My dear King Rahugana, you are also victim of the external energy, being situated on the path of attraction to material pleasure. So that you may become an equal friend to all living entities, I now advise you to give up your kingly position and the rod by which you punish criminals. Give up attraction to sense objects and take up the sword of knowledge sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy. Cross to the other side. So this is instruction to every human being. Every human being is a victim of external energy, being situated in the path of attraction to material pleasure, so that we may become an equal friend to all living entities, meaning we come to the spiritual platform. Jadabharat is saying, I advise you to give up your kingly position. So he's asking him to give up his position as a king. So many people will argue, oh no, but if king is not there, what will happen? Some other king will come. We have to give up our responsibilities at the right time. All great kings, emperors, Raja Rishis, they gave up their positions. We have to give up our position in the material world. We have to become free from position, upadi. Sometimes, unfortunately, even like I told multiple times, Vaishnava K talks about devotees becoming attached to position. So it's good to give up this position. Give up attraction to sense objects. Take up sword of knowledge sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot and cross to the other side. Yeah, so Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, he talks about the material world is mm, the real form cannot be perceived. We don't know where it begins, where the foundation is, but with determination. Where is this? Uh, Asanga shastrena dridena chitva. Asanga shastra. The shastra of detachment, weapon of detachment. Dridena, with determination. Chitva, cut off. So we have to also put some effort to become free from this material bondage. Rajovacha. So King Ravana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all. Even birth among demigods in heaven planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comfort, there is no possibility of associating with devotees. So human birth is a great opportunity for self-realization. One may take birth in a high planetary system among the demigods, but due to the profusion of material comforts, one cannot gain release from material bondage. And again, this is true even in the material world. If there is profuse material comfort, too much, one cannot gain release because they somehow be attached. Even on this earth, those who are, Prabhupada is talking about this, those who are very opulent do not generally, again, we've discussed this multiple times, it doesn't apply to everybody, but generally they don't care to take to Krishna consciousness. An intelligent person actually interested in getting freed from the material clutches must associate with pure devotees. By such association, one can gradually become detached from the material attraction of women and money. One has to become detached from material attraction. Money and women are the basic principles of material attachment. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised those who are actually serious about returning back to Godhead to give up money and women. Money and women can be fully utilized in the service of the Lord, and one who can utilize them in this way can become freed from material bondage. Tatam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata. What is that? Nice verse. Tajjoshanaadashvapavargavatmani shraddharathir a very nice verse. Satam prasangan. Satam means pure devotees. Prasangan through their association. Mama virya samvido. Mama, Krishna is saying, my wonderful activities. Samvidaha by discussion. Bhavanti become what? Hrit karna rasayana kataha. Hrit karna, heart, ear. They become pleasing by all these stories. Tat joshanad. By that cultivation. Quickly, Ashu. Apavarga vartmani. So we start progress on the path of apavarga liberation. Shraddha, then what happens? Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, Anukramishati. So we come in association with devotees, then with little faith, then we develop attraction to Krishna, then we achieve devotion. Important thing is Sastang Prasangan Mama Virya Samvido. Discussion about the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna in the association of pure devotees. That's the key. Only in the association of devotees can one relish the glorification of the Supreme Person of Godhead. Just through a little association. Lavamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. One can become successful in his journey back to Godhead. It's not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adokshaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. So he's saying, simply by association, pure devotees, one can achieve devotional service. By associating with you just for a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of determination. Very, very important. Maharaja Rahugana is speaking on our behalf. Generally, this is what people do argue. If somebody comes to tell them anything good, they'll argue. So Rahugana is saying, now I'm free from argument. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to listen to whatever you're saying. I'm going to try and understand. If I can't understand, I will humbly inquire. I will stop arguing. Argument, arguments means thinking of themselves superior or equal like that. No argument. Inquiry is allowed. Humble inquiry. And then false prestige. I am somebody. Why should I listen to somebody else? I am such an important person. And then lack of discrimination. Like we talked about this also. Intelligence has two parts: discrimination, determination. One cannot close their eyes to right and wrong. Mm. One has to have discrimination. Mm. So many discussions happening about this Ritvik and ISKCON, and one needs to have discrimination. One cannot just close their eyes and just. That's why I keep telling everybody, saying that Don't just blindly accept anything and everything that is going on around you. Even without within ISKCON or so-called outside institutions which look like ISKCON or anywhere. Hear Prabhupada, read Prabhupada's books with that knowledge. Discriminate. Discriminate. Even in association, we have to discriminate. Mm. And these three things are the root causes of our entanglement: argument, false prestige, lack of discrimination. And Rahugana is so fortunate. He's saying, now I'm free from all these problems. Actually, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, even a little association of a pure devotee, should actually free us from this. So we have to look inwards and see how much we are freed from argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination. Then nobody can prevent us from making progress on the path. So association with pure devotees certainly frees one from material pleasure. The arguments offered by pure devotees to the disciples are so convincing that even a dull-headed disciple is immediately enlightened by spiritual knowledge. We can see this actually in the arguments put forth by Srila Prabhupada. They're so convincing. Sometimes it really, surprises me how people can fall into this trap of Ritvikism, right? Because Prabhupada is so clearly, his books are so clear. Unfortunately, people don't want to read them. Even that reading is with some bias, some influence, so they're not able to understand the reality. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the great personalities, whether they walk on earth's surface as children, young boys, avadutas, or great brahmanas. Even if they're hidden under different guises, I offer my respects to all of them. See, we also have to understand different devotees will be hidden under different guises. We cannot recognize them. So it's safe for us to respect all devotees and definitely all jivas, definitely devotees, definitely devotees. And in the name of management, sometimes we get into difficulties by not properly respecting devotees. At the end of the day, what is important is love for Krishna. Love for Krishna is displayed by love for those jivas whom Krishna loves, and Krishna especially loves his devotees, especially pure devotees. So we have to be very, very careful. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties that are always offending them. King Rahugana was very repentant because he had forced Jadavara to carry his palanquin. He therefore began offering prayers to all kinds of brahmanas and self-realized persons, even though they might be playing like children or hiding in some guises. And the four Kumaras walked everywhere in the guise of 5-year-old boys. And similarly, there are many brahmanas, knowers of Brahman, who traverse the globe either as young men, children, or avadutas. Being puffed up due to their position, royal dynasties, or even very opulent persons offend great personalities. Therefore, King Rahugana began to offer his respectful obeisances unto them, so that the offensive royal dynasties might not glide down into hellish condition. If one offends a great personality, the Supreme Person of Godhead does not excuse one. Although the great personalities themselves might not take offense, the dust of the lotus feet of the great Vaishnavas will take offense. So better we don't get into this mess at all. Maharaja Ambarisha was offended by Durvasa, who even approached Lord Vishnu for pardon. Lord Vishnu would not grant him pardon. Therefore, he had to fall down at the lotus feet of Maharaja Ambarisha. Even though Maharaja Ambarisha was a Kshatriya Grihastha, one should be very careful not to offend the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. And this offense to lotus feet of Vaishnavas can happen in multiple ways. One could be openly offending, criticizing. The other could be not just being responsive to them. Sometimes somebody is saying something out of pain, and we just ignore, thinking we are right. See, we should understand one simple truth. Simple truth. If we become the cause of pain for any Vaishnava, we are in trouble. And We might completely justify our actions, saying, I did it with this intention, that intention, whatever it is. But if it resulted in hurting a Vaishnava, then we are in trouble. So we have to be very, very careful, really very careful. Knowingly, unknowingly, we end up offending so many devotees. And we cannot continue that. If we want to achieve Krishna, we cannot continue this offensive attitude. We might get visibly, we might get, whatever recognition, position, this, that, and all that in the material world. And as in, even in an institution like ISKCON, we might get recognized. But that doesn't mean that we are going to get Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful. And in fact, many of our acharyas, they even did not want to be in the association of devotees who are criticizing other devotees. Mm. So it's very, very important. So I choose not to remain in the association of those devotees who are offending other Vaishnavas. The choice. We have to be very, very clear and discriminating about our association. Those who are really qualified Vaishnavas, who are with all good intention, trying to guide others on the path of devotion, they are not offending. Of course, they also have to be careful if any person whom they are trying to advise actually doesn't look up to them for their advice, and they are trying to just give free advice, then it will result in again, and if that person becomes offended, then there's a high chance of it becoming Vaishnava Aparadh. So we have to be very, very careful, in dealing with devotees. Actually, see, this whole process of bhakti is like a sharp sword. Mm, very, very, we have to be very careful. Can very easily cut us. Mm. At the same time, we should not give up discrimination. So both these are important. We should not give up discrimination at the same time, and at the same time, we should not offend devotees. We should have discrimination, and if we see that we are, if we see devotees not acting, very high class manner, just avoid this association. Don't disrespect them. Just avoid their association, unless you are in a position, position authority to guide them. Otherwise, just give up their association. This is recommended for our own safety. So how many verses are there? 24. Okay, just finish this. Shukadev Goswami continued, My dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction. This is very important verse. There were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jadabharata due to his being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Jadabharata neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean. Now, this is very, very important. Not that Jadabharata was a low standard class Vaishnava. It's just again teaching us, saying even if we have some waves of dissatisfaction, we should just neglect it. We should not react to it. And then very soon our heart will become calm and quiet again. Rahugana had insulted him. He was a great Paramahamsa. Although Rahugana had insulted him, he was a great Paramahamsa. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. So somebody might offend us, amanina manadena. So if somebody spoke something hard, harsh, etc., it might create some waves of dissatisfaction in our heart, but we should neglect it. Very, very important. And this doesn't come up to many years in Krishna consciousness, till our sadhana, we do our sadhana for many years. Then we might get the control to neglect and not react. Mm. And because Vaishnavas are generally kind-hearted, though there is some wave of dissatisfaction, they'll neglect, ignore, and then because of compassion, they will want to help that other person. And then for that, their heart has to become calm and quiet. He then forgot the insult because King Rahugana pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. This is also very important, because he also begged a pardon. Even otherwise, Jada Bharat would have forgiven him. But this was an added, good behavior from Rahugana. So it's always good. If we know that we've done something wrong, just go fall at some devotees' feet, lotus feet. It's safe and it's required. Right? Sometimes we might be arguing, no, 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 but I don't think I did anything. But it's just safe. Say, if in case my behavior hurt you, I beg your, pardon and fall at their feet. After this, he began to wander all over earth, just as before. Kapil Dev describes the symptoms of great personalities. Titikshava Karunika Suhruda Sarvadehinam. Ajata Shatruva Shanta. Hmm, that is the verse. Tikshava Karunika Suhruda Sarvadehinam. Ajata Shatruva Shanta. Sadhava Sadhu Bhushana. Sadhava. Hmm. Saintly devotee is certainly very tolerant. He is friend to all living entities. Does not create enemies within the world. Pure devotee has all qualities of a sadhu. Due to his material body, his senses certainly were certainly agitated when he was insulted by King Ravana. But later, due to the king's humble submission, Jalabharata excused him. Duty of everyone desiring to return home back to Godhead to become submissive like King Rahugana and beg pardon of Vaishnavas one may have offended. Vaishnavas are generally very kind-hearted. Therefore, if one immediately submits himself at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, one is immediately cleared of offensive reactions. If one does not do so, the reactions will remain and the results will not be very palatable. Very, very important. And this results in suffering till we rectify our behavior. And if it is very, very offensive, then we might just lose taste for devotion. So we have to be extremely careful. Mad elephant offense. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jadabharat, King Raghuna of the state of Savira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified because he can, without difficulty, give up the bodily conception. And so if we take shelter of servant of the Lord, then we can give up the bodily conception. Sadhu is a pure devotee. It has been our practical experience. The first instruction of our spiritual master infused us with Krishna consciousness, so that now we are at least on the path of Krishna consciousness and can understand the philosophy. Prabhupada is saying. Hmm. The whole world is revolving under the bodily conception. Therefore, there must be devotees all over the world to deliver people from the false bodily conception and fully engage them in Krishna consciousness. So everybody has to preach. First, we have to come out of our bodily conception and we have to preach. Apani achari. Dikhaimu sabare. And by our action, we should teach. Not that we are theoretical. We'll say, okay, you have to give up, all attachment, and we ourselves are attached. That is not going to have any effect. Last verse. King Parishit then told Shukadeva Goswami, my dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul, which is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception are like rogues and thieves in that forest, and one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it is not very easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of the story because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from the allegory, and therefore request your holiness to give the direct meaning. So whatever Prabhupada has already explained in the purports in this chapter, next chapter, Shukadeva Goswami explains to Parikshit Maharaj the meaning of the allegory. So anyway, so we will not do that because we've already done the discussion. So with this, actually, we will end this episode of Jada Bharat. So next, after this, okay, we can read. Okay, all of this is very technical stuff, can be read. Yeah, so mostly we'll go into sixth canto, I think. Yeah. So we'll do Ajamila. Okay. So we'll stop here. Anybody has any comments, questions, anything? Okay. There's nothing else we can post. ग्रंथरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय जगत गुरु शिल प्रभुपाद की जय वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय हरे कृष्ण
Hare